Thanks very much, Jonathan. So that's our first test of the big society for today. We're now going to switch from West London to East London. Will Horwitz is here from Community Links, which is another organisation which has been praised by many as an example of what big society ought to be. So, Will, what's your experience of big society so far, and what have you got to say about what has been achieved and what needs to happen?
Great, thank you. As Julian said, I'm Will, I work for Community Links. I'd like to just start off by sending the apologies from our Chief Executive, Geraldine, and our co-founder, David, who hope to be here today. We're invited to speak, and I'm standing in for them. Ironically, I guess the reason they're not here is because we're having a trustee away discussing the next sort of phase of our restructure that the organisation is going through. And the first phase of that involved making redundant about 30 staff who, I think for most of them today is their last day. Some of them have been in post for over 15 years. We had to close 3 community centres, and we've kind of shut down quite large chunks of what we were doing, including a lot of the play work we used to do with children. But we haven't closed, and like other organisations, we are still going, and I've got a plan for where to go next. So it's tough, but we're getting on there, and Jeremy and David are busy doing that today. Just a quick overview of Community Links. So, as Julia said, we're in East London. We were founded over 30 years ago out of the back of a bus by a couple of young guys who decided to drive it around the local estates, taking toys to children to play on the bus. We've grown quite a lot, and now we're one of the largest, I think, community charities in the country. We run services for about 30,000 people a year, all in Newham and East London. Everything from youth clubs. Well, we did do children's play schemes, not as of tomorrow, I think. We have a load of community centres. We do employment support, and we run Newham City Farm. We have a school for young people who've been excluded from education. So kind of a whole range of local services. And I thought I'd just try and illustrate, I guess, the big society, both the potential of it and also the downsides of it, through the story of one of our community centres. So it's called Rugby. Rugby is a little estate just outside Stratford. It's kind of a bit removed from all the development that's going on with the Olympics, a little bit isolated from that. Quite a small area. When we did a survey a couple of years ago, 70% of the people said they were afraid to go out after dark. 75% of people felt that crime was a very big issue in the area. There was a kind of green in the middle of the estate where not much happened. It was mostly where occasional burnt-out cars got dumped, and nothing else went on there very much. And they had a partnership with the local council who provided the land, it was their land, with the private equity foundation who funded the capital, and the local community who designed the building. We built a fairly small community centre, probably smaller than this room even. One of those tarmac kind of games area things. And we started off with some basic provisions, so we did children's play scheme after school every day, and we did a youth club a couple of nights a week. I had a centre manager, and then the centre manager and some volunteers went out to the community and asked, what should we put on here? What would you like to do? I'm sure this is a very familiar story to many people in this room. It's probably what goes on here as well. But they came up with lots of ideas like, there's a pensioners club, bingo club, walking club, ESOL classes. There was a steel band for a while. Lots of big community barbecues. The local councillors come and do their surgeries there. The police community support officers come along. So lots of, fairly traditional community development type activities. And within a year, we did another survey. 80% of people in the area said they thought the area had improved. And the police told us that both crime and antisocial behaviour had dropped by half just in that year. I'll tell you what's happened to rugby now in just a second. But 3 lessons that we can that we have drawn. I don't want to present it as some sort of a model or anything as fancy as that. But it's kind of 3 things that have struck us about the experience. One is the importance of partnership. So we did that, as I said, with the local authority, with lots of the local statutory providers like the police and the health people and the councillors. We did it with some charitable money. We did it with, most importantly though, with the community. So we were asking, as a community charity, we were going out and asking people what they wanted to see. There's probably lots of debate you can have about the roles of various partners in these partnerships. But one thing that struck us and that we've said, and it's a nice phrase that David, our co-founder, has used, so I'm just going to quote it. We think it's the public funding of social provision that marks out our economy as that of a civilised and compassionate society. So although these partnerships have a role in terms of delivery and decision making and all sorts of things, I don't think we'd advocate that the public funding of these things should be lost. The second lesson could be if we think about the importance of relationships. So when David wrote a little book about rugby actually last year, and when he was talking to people using the centre, he was struck by a comment from someone who said about the staff, talking about the staff, said, it's not like they're workers. People here really care about our family, which is in a way a sad and probably unfair indictment of the sort of statutory staff that people have been dealing with. They felt they didn't care, that being a worker was somehow the antithesis of caring about the family. But equally, I think shows the importance of that building up that relationship in communities, and possibly someone like Community Links can do that much more easily because we don't have the responsibility of throwing people out of their home if they're not paying the rent or anything. We don't have any of those statutory duties to enforce, so we can build relationships with people instead. And we've done a bit of work to try and quantify these relationships. Are they nice to have? Are they just nice things, or do they actually contribute something tangible to communities and the delivery of services? And that's called Deep Value. You can find out more about that on our website. And then the final, I guess, lesson, which links in maybe more to this point, was about do people come first? And I mean, I guess it's a rhetorical question. People obviously come first, we hope. And evidence of that, again, when David was talking to people, he was asking about the facilities and just asking what do you think of the centre and stuff. And was struck by the fact that people kept calling it our centre, our kitchen, our bingo club, even when people who weren't actually come to the centre very often, and maybe a lot of them didn't use the bingo club themselves, but they still saw it as ours. And David felt, and we feel, that if they'd said yours or theirs or Community Links, that would have been a sign of failure in that centre. But people talked about our centres. Finally, just three thoughts on the big society and how it relates back to rugby. The first one might be, I guess, probably maybe a lot of people would agree, everyone would agree probably, that this idea of giving communities more power is a good idea. It's not a new idea. It's been happening for ages. It's Jonathan and others have, there's loads of stories of illustrating it. And equally, bits of the policy around the big society are fine. Some of the localism stuff sounds like it could be excellent. I don't know too much about it. We're one of localities' partners delivering the community organising programme, so we wouldn't have problems with bits of the policy around it. But I guess where it's falling down, which isn't me to say this, but where it's falling down is in government's sort of broader economic policy. So rugby has gone from having children's play schemes every night of the week to having no children's play provision at all, starting from today actually. It's gone down from having two full-time centre staff, and as well as we need some children's play schemes. It's gone from two full-time centre staff and good probably 5 or 10 sessional staff coming in, down to one centre manager who's doing the whole thing herself. Which has meant, obviously, we can't keep it open as many hours a day, and it can only really be open 5 days a week within working hours, unless we really wants to work lots of overtime, which is a bit unfair. So in replacement, we're trying to do lots of, we've managed to keep it open. We do have a bit of a funding gap, but we have managed to keep it open. And we're looking at other sources of funding to run certain activities. We're trying to do a lot more voluntary, getting local community members in to volunteer. Which is fine, but a lot of people are very busy. Might want to volunteer, but you don't have the time. So it's definitely reduced service at the moment. I hope we can build it back up again. But the speed at which these, central government cuts on local authority have been imposed have meant that we haven't been able to get up and running again. It hasn't been a smooth transition. It's been a quite a vicious transition, really, from a sort of thriving centre right back down to a bare bones centre, and hopefully we'll be building it back up again. So the scale of the cuts and also the speed of the cuts has been a real issue. I mean, that's replicated across our centres, and 3 of them have practically closed. But probably even more importantly than the impact on us as an organisation, or a few centres that we run, is the impact on people in Newham. So we've got disproportionately high public sector employment, and we're, I think, the youngest area in the UK in terms of population. So youth unemployment and public sector redundancies are going to hit Newham incredibly hard. We've already got high levels of unemployment. Things like the benefit changes, housing benefit changes, Actually, we think housing benefit changes are probably going to force people out of central London into Newham, so we're going to end up with loads more people on the housing benefit. So the broader impact of government cuts is going to be huge in somewhere like Newham, and small, there is a lot of potential in community or community development stuff, but actually sometimes it gets overwhelmed by the level of things happening more broadly. Final point, just to round off, is a sort of more practical one, which is about government's ambition that outsourcing payment by results, contracting out, is going to be a huge new opportunity for community organisations and charities and local groups. I think Nat Way was talking the other day about the tens of billions, the hundreds of billions of pounds that are going to be available. And I guess this is an opportunity. I mean, this could be an opportunity. We've been quite involved with some of this stuff. So we've run the New Deal in East London for the last many years, and we've been the most successful New Deal provider in London and the South East for the last 4 years. So we're quite good at the New Deal, and we're bidding to be a subcontractor on the work programme. And our co-founder David has been instrumental in the setting up of the social impact bond, which is the thing being run out of Peterborough Prison that's supposed to be the model for payment by results. But as I'm sure everyone knows, we're quite a large community organisation, and we're struggling to be able to bid to be a subcontractor on the work programme. Lots of other organisations just can't find the cash flow, aren't big enough to be able to do it. So we're very worried that a lot of this contracting out is going to be done on terms which, if they don't specifically exclude community organisations and charities, are effectively going to exclude them. And what you're going to end up with is services run by big corporates because they've got the financial leverage and the scale to be able to replicate, which cynical people might say is what government intended all along. If you're going to be generous and say that the government generally does believe charities could run a lot of this stuff, then I think they need to put a lot more effort into designing contracts and designing this stuff in a way that charities can actually bid for and have a chance of winning. And we say the first stage of that would be involving the voluntary sector in designing a commissioning process. So you can't just don't want them inventing their own commissioning process and then coming to us. So as a practical bit, I guess, maybe we can something around that, around the way outsourcing and contracting out and payment by results has to be designed with the community sector, not kind of put out there and then we none of us have a chance of getting it.
Okay, thanks very much. It was clear from what both Jonathan and Bill have been saying that relationships are at the absolute heart of successful community work and community development. And if you undermine the things that underpin those relationships, then it takes a long time to build society back up again. So the first test of big society is government prepared to implement its own policies? The second test, I think, is government prepared to support those relationships that already exist and have been built up by successful community organisations?